Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ian McNaughton, Big E here. Doing something a little bit different, style-wise, layout-wise. I'm in my bedroom. I'm using my suitcase because I don't have an easel. I refuse to pay money for it and build it. Because it's like $100 difference between like actually buying a pre-made, I think easel is the word, or it's like 20 bucks if you just make it. And I don't feel like making one right now. So that's why you don't have a easel, you have a suitcase that you get to look at instead. I'm doing this in my bedroom on Monday afternoon, July 5th, 2021. And this is Ian Review Sports, the 2021 Austrian Grand Prix. Happened yesterday. I was split screening the race with the England USA rugby match, test match that was taking place yesterday at Twickenham. Rewatched the race between the time it ended and now I got a whole bunch of notes here to talk about to discuss with people. So hopefully this is gonna be a good video. I have no idea. Trying something new, doing something a little different. Good news. I also got some new markers. Don't have an orange one though, so that's not great. So if you're a McLaren fan, you still have to deal with me putting them in blue. And otherwise, there's not a whole lot new. I got a new camera as well. Shout out my brother Neil. He got me a camera, so I have a camera I gotta work and fix, and maybe it'll be better than me just using my webcam. I might have an actual nice, decent camera to use when I shoot this stuff, but we'll see. I'm more willing to make or fix a camera than I am to make or fix an easel. So let's begin. Austrian Grand Prix results for 2021 include the winner, Max Verstappen. Valtteri Bottas finished second. Lando Norris third. There's your podium. Lewis Hamilton for Mercedes fourth. Carlos Sainz fifth. There's your top five. Sergio Perez sixth. Daniel Ricciardo seventh. Charles Leclerc eighth. Pierre Gasly ninth. And Fernando Alonso 10th. That rounds out your top 10 from yesterday's race. And then 11th was George Russell. Yuki Tsunoda was 12th. Lance Stroll 13th. Antonio Giovinazzi 14th, Kimi Räikkönen 15th, Nicholas Latifi 16th, Sebastian Vettel 17th, Mick Schumacher 18th, Nikita Mazepin 19th, Esteban Ocon 20th. Both Vettel and Ocon DNF'd. Ocon DNF'd on the first lap, obviously, because he kind of got pinned. I'll talk about it in the notes here, but he kind of got pinned and was forced into no man's land. And then Vettel, as I'll talk about later on as well, got crashed by his former teammate Kimi Räikkönen. So that's not great. Events and notes is in the middle category here. 132,000 people were in attendance in Spielberg yesterday. That's really cool. Sports are finally coming back. People are finally coming back in waves, really. Because I remember last year when they did the doubleheader in Austria, and there was nobody. No fans were allowed to attend. And now this year we have over 130,000. You'd love to see it. As I mentioned, Ocon retires on lap one after crash with Giovinazzi. Kind of like Pierre Gasly the week before, going up the hill into turn three. Just wasn't anywhere for Ocon to go. He was stuck either right in the middle between Schumacher and Giovinazzi. Then Giovinazzi bumps his tire, and that essentially ends his race. His tire's screwed up, can't do anything after that, and Ocon is no more. So it was too bad. I know he's had a rough week. They mentioned that in the broadcast. He's had a rough week in Austria, so not great for Ocon, not great for Alpine. Even though Alonso got top 10 finish, Ocon probably is happy to be out of there. So he did get his new contract as well, which that doesn't look great on either when you crash. Perez and Norris battle on lap one, with Norris forcing Perez off on turn four. I'll talk about that a little later on. I thought it was fine. I thought it was clean racing, but they were battling. Leclerc passes Perez on lap 14. The old switcheroo that Crofty was talking about. That was a great call, by the way, and loved how I believe it was Crofty he called it in real time, but then on the replay he nailed it perfectly about how Leclerc let up a little bit, Perez went in too deep, and then Leclerc went back on the inside. Great stuff. That was a great call. Norris then gets a 5-second penalty. I believe he officially got it on lap 17 for the Perez incident. So it's the bare minimum of a penalty that you have to suffer through. It's the minimal consequence for that sort of thing. I don't see the need for it. I think they were just racing. They were just racing hard. That hasn't been called all year. That sort of thing has not been called at all this season, and now you're going to start calling it this race, which in another sense, later on this race, it does kind of set the tone for what's being called and what isn't being called. So personally, I wasn't a fan of it. I didn't think Norris deserved a penalty for it, but what can you do? You got a 5-second penalty. I mean, it didn't cost him too much. He still finished third compared to second, but you go ask Lando Norris if he'd rather finish second or third, and he'll go tell you. So just it was brutal. I don't think it was a brutal penalty. It was just a brutal sequence of events that let that happen, because then, of course, Norris loses his position in the pits because Bottas pits the same time as Norris, but because Norris has to wait an extra 5 seconds, Bottas can just pit and go. It's tough, but there's a lot of time left for Lando Norris this season. Yeah, it is what it is. Perez then gets 2 5-second penalties for forcing Leclerc off twice on lap 41 and 47. Kind of not quite in the same spot, but in the same sector. He gets essentially a 10-second penalty for doing the same thing to Leclerc. So if you're upset with Norris getting a penalty, then I mean, it's kind of the same thing that Perez does. That's what I was referring to when I said set the tone, because when Norris got that penalty, then you watch the Perez incidents. It's like, okay, you have to call that then, in which they did. They did call it. They called that the same thing, 5-second penalties. He got 2 because he did it twice. So that's how it should have been, and that's how it was called. So it was consistent, at least from the FIA, I thought, this week. It was consistent. Maybe not accurate, but it was consistent. Hamilton gets damage on lap 48 after going over the sausage curb on turn 1. That was essentially the end of him having any shot to win this race or to be close. He just didn't have it after that. It was really too bad, because I thought he had a decent car. I thought he was going to get top 2, maybe top 3 finish, and it just didn't happen for him. As a result, Bottas passes Hamilton on lap 52. Norris passes him on lap 54. Carlos Sainz, who eventually finishes 5th, and Sergio Perez, who finishes 6th. They're way behind Hamilton, so they don't have a chance to catch up to him at any point near the end. Alonso passes Russell on lap 68 to take 10th and the final point spot, which great battle. If you go back and watch that final lap between Alonso and Russell, it's a great battle. Obviously, Russell is making the most out of his Williams car, and Alonso is having trouble passing him, but then he finally gets by him on the final lap in the DRS zone going into turn 4. It's a great lap, and it's a disappointing finish for Russell, obviously, because everybody's hoping, or at least most of us, I would think, are hoping that Russell gets points, a points finish at some point this season, and I think he will. This just showed that he's getting closer, and he's performing like a great driver. No complaints from myself to George Russell. You can't be too upset. I know you want points, but you can't be too upset. You're still focusing ahead and what's down the road if you're George Russell. For Fernando Alonso, it's a good pass. He gets the top 10 finish, especially after his teammate crashes on the first lap. Can't be upset if you're Fernando Alonso, and you can't be totally upset if you're Alpine. Sainz passes Ricciardo for 6th place on the final lap. And again, because Perez got the penalties, that's why technically Sainz finishes 5th, Perez finishes 6th. And Ricciardo also was just too far back for Hamilton for them to make any moves on him. Vettel and Raikkonen crash on the final lap. I think it was Paul the rest of it on the broadcast that Vettel caught him off guard. Kind of looked like it in the replay. And Vettel DNFs. He finishes 2 spots behind Raikkonen. And I mean, it was a weird day for Aston Martin because I think at one point Stroll and Vettel were 6th and 7th during the race at some point, and early on they just could not get it going for whatever reason. They had a rough day. And it kind of culminated with the crash at the end because Vettel was going to make the late pass and Raikkonen kind of adjusted at the last second. And as a result, Vettel DNF. He still completed 90% more of the race. Like, it was the final lap. So he finishes ahead of the Haas's. Yeah, it's a disappointing race if you're Sebastian Vettel, and really Aston Martin to another extent because, you know, Lance Stroll finished 13th, and you're probably wanting to be ahead of Tsunoda, Russell, and Alonso. Like, you probably think you're a top 10 team, and you just aren't for whatever reason this race. And then speaking of Stroll, he gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. I don't know what lap his pit was, but he got a 5-second penalty for that. Yuki Tsunoda gets 2 5-second penalties for crossing the white line on each of his pits. And listen, I like Yuki. I've had stalking Yuki since he joined F1, and he's been all over the place this year. Not like the Haas extent, but still all over the place. Not at Mazepin level, but all over the place. And this was just another reason why. Because the first time you do that, the first time you make that mistake, it's like, okay, we'll let it slide the first time. Understandable. You made a mistake, you overshot it, you overcompensate, whatever. Fair enough. But when you do this second time, it's like, okay, you didn't learn, you're not paying attention, you're not focused. You can't have that happen once, really, in F1, never mind 2 times. So that was disappointing for Yuki, and to watch him go through that because he should know better. He's a better driver than that. Raikkonen gets a penalty for the Vettel incident. It's essentially a drive-through penalty that converts, I think, to a 30-second penalty. So doesn't really do much for him, but he does get a penalty for causing the incident with Vettel. And then Mazepin and Latifi get penalties on the final lap for disobeying the double yellow flag. So essentially they were, I believe, coming at the end of the Raikkonen Vettel crash, and they were just going by, and they just didn't either see or they just ignored the yellow flags, and that's why they get penalties. Doesn't really matter much in the end. Latifi still gets 16th. Mazepin still finishes 19th. Mazepin finishes last of all drivers that completed 90% of the race. So that's a lot of what happened. I don't have everything, but that's a lot of what happened Sunday in Austria. Driver standings are at the very end here. I didn't put in constructors, but driver standings, Verstappen is still at first on top with 182 points. Lewis Hamilton is second with 150 points. Hamilton needs to have a great Silverstone performance. Look for Mercedes to have a great Silverstone performance, considering they're bringing upgrades to Hamilton's home track. Everybody, I think, in England is going to be there. Look for Lewis Hamilton to have a really good race, and look for Mercedes to have a great race. Sergio Perez is third with 104 points. Lando Norris with 101 points, so they are neck and neck for the third spot. Valtteri Bottas, he's sitting in the wings with 92 points. Charles Leclerc, 62 points. Carlos Sainz, 60 points. Good showing for the Ferrari drivers this year. You're happy with a 5th and an 8th with Sainz and Leclerc. You're battling McLaren this year, so you know that's your competition. As long as you're outdoing McLaren, you're doing okay. But I mean, Norris got 3rd, Ricciardo got 7th, so you're probably wanting more. Speaking of Ricciardo, he got 40 points this year. He's 8th in the driver standings. Pierre Gasly 1 point behind him with 39 points. He's sitting 9th. Sebastian Vettel is 10th with 30 points. That rounds out your top 10. And then finally, Fernando Alonso, 11th with 20 points. Lance Stroll, 12th with 14 points. Esteban Ocon, 13th with 12 points. Tsunoda, got 9 points for 14th. Both Raikkonen and Giovinazzi have a point, 15th and 16th. Russell, he's 17th in the driver standings, which is amazing, considering how well he's been doing the last couple of weeks. Schumacher, Mazepin, 18th and 19th, no points, and then Latifi, he's got no points. He's in last due to finishes. I'll just check out the Constructors Championship quickly, but essentially it's Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren, and Ferrari are battling for third and fourth. So yeah, Red Bull has 286 points, Mercedes has 242 points. Again, Mercedes needs a big weekend at Silverstone to have any luck. McLaren has 141 points. Ferrari has 122 points. So they're 19. McLaren's 19 points up on Ferrari. Besides, not a big lead, but you know, decent lead. AlphaTauri has 48 points. Aston Martin has 44. Alpine has 32. And then finally, Alfa Romeo has 2, and Williams and Haas have 0. Yeah, I mean, what can you do if you're really Mercedes? You got to go on a bit of a run here. McLaren and Ferrari has to go on a bit of a run, but McLaren, you're feeling a bit comfortable. Alpha, I think you're a little bit worried with Tsunoda, but in terms of constructor standings, Stroll and Vettel haven't really given you a whole lot to be afraid of. And then Alpine, they're kind of stuck in no man's land. 30 points up on 8th place, but 12 points back at 6th. Yeah, not a whole lot new in the constructor standings. So week off this week in Formula One for an Ian preview sports. So no race to preview, no race to recap next week. But we will be back for the Silverstone race 2 weeks from. 2 weeks from now, we'll have a review, and then probably 10 days from now, we'll have a preview. Be sure to tune into that as well on the YouTube channel. If you like this video, you should like it, and then be sure to subscribe to the channel. We got a couple podcasts coming up this week, and then we got some Ian previews. I got an Ian reviews rugby, Ian reviews sports, Ian reviews rugby. You know the drill. Coming up later this week, and then an Ian previews rugby coming up this week as well. Great stuff. Be sure to tune into all that. Again, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment anything in the comment section, and we'll be back again soon. Peace out.